What's your availability this week?
Availability, Tim Ream is obviously back from international duty. We've got who else we've got back? Oh, Wilf is back from suspension, so we've got him back. We're not sure about Patrick at the moment because obviously there's been talk about another club coming for him. I think the two clubs are discussing the valuations and then he'll be getting a medical if that's been agreed. But I think we're quite in control of that because if it's not agreed, then he'll be involved for Saturday.
In terms of, you said last week he had not approached you about a move. Have you talked to him about it? And if so, what were those discussions like? Yeah,
I had a chat with him yesterday when he was back, wanting to see where his feelings was, and it's hard to talk. It's a private conversation obviously I had with him, but he intimated that he would be interested in a move. So again, we're in control of it because we're not looking to sell better players unless the fee's right for our club. So, I believe that's ongoing at the moment.
Does it matter, I guess, where he goes in your mind in terms of as a player, or do you feel like he could succeed anywhere?
Does it matter? Yeah, it matters because I want to see the players that we've got, who we help develop, go on to bigger and better things. So if Patrick's, wishes are to go, to Europe, then I'd like to see him in one of the top leagues in Europe. I think that is a step up for him.
In terms of what that leaves with your team, obviously you have Idan, you have Tiger, but how much does that put pressure if he in fact does depart on finding that, and what conversations have you had with Sporting on finding that next player?
Well, he puts pressure on us, but it's something that we've obviously been aware of. There's been interest in him. The fact that we haven't been able to agree a new contract with Patrick and his representatives has always indicated that this was likely to happen, whether it was in this window or at the end of the season. So we've had balls in motion and plates spinning in terms of what other players we can look to bring in if that was to happen. So I do feel that this has probably been pushed by his representatives more than the actual player.
Are you surprised it's now as opposed to the end of the season, potentially?
I am surprised. I'm surprised. I'll be surprised if he goes to the Championship in the UK, as has been reported. But that's just my own personal view.
Why?
I think a team. I think the Championship is not too much different from the other. This is a major league over here. You're going to a second league in the UK. There's not going to be loads of time for development because they play Saturday, Tuesday. There's 46 games a season. I think for him to remain one of the big players for the US national team as well, probably to stay here would be better.
In terms of your guys, I was kind of just crunching some numbers earlier. Based on the way you guys defend, you defend with the 4 in front of Kalina and also kind of the 2 in front of him, that back 6. Are you asking more out of that group this year, given the goal scoring you guys have had, but obviously the goal conceding numbers that have also followed?
Yeah, I think with the quality of players that we've brought in, we're naturally going to create more goals and score more goals from different areas, and I think we've done that this season. What we haven't done, what we've probably done more of, we've conceded more goals from lesser chances. Certainly not high scoring chances. We've made a lot of individual mistakes. So I think that's been the big thing. We've always been a team that I want to defend from the front, so it's not just a 6 that's defending, it's actually a 10 who's defending, and that's always going to have to be our basis and our principles. Opposition, once they beat that front 4, then it's about shifting across the pitch and making sure we keep them on the outside of us. But we can't. It's been difficult to legislate for the amount of mistakes, individual mistakes we've made this season.
Steve? And just immediately following up on that, when we were talking to Ashley yesterday, it was kind of about that, and like a couple of times where Nick got caught like with two guys over there and he had to choose one, and it kind of fell to the other, leaving the open space on the back post there. Is it because the other team is chasing, attacking with numbers, or players not getting back?
No, that's making poor decisions.
Does that include lack of communication?
It can do, but it's poor decision making. If I don't mind defending with a back four against 5 opposition, because the furthest person away from the ball is not a danger. It's going to take one hell of a ball to reach him, and by that time you can usually shift across. But jumping and leaving spaces in behind us is poor decision making.
So I take it that's something you addressed with watching the films with the players?
Yeah, I know. Watching the game back, we're actually in good positions. The fact that we jump out of them positions opens it up for the opposition.
Okay. And just back to with Patrick and the agreement and stuff, the failure to come to an extended deal here, is that because of terms? Like, is it money, length of something?
It's always money. It's always money. And I thought that the club made fair offers, and there was a number of offers in January. And I spoke to Patrick about where I thought he should be and what he should do. But his representatives had a totally different idea, which was out of the ballpark for this football club.
Okay, thank you.
With all the talk about Patrick and everything.
As a bit of my American out the ballpark, because I knew you'd understand that. Hey.
You are.
Hey, I'm turning.
With the situation with Patrick that you've talked about at length, what is the conversation with you and the rest of the club, the rest of the squad? I actually mentioned it yesterday. Yes, it can be a distraction, but you got to go on and you got to play. So talk about players moving. What is your conversation with the players playing?
There's never a conversation about players moving at all. It's the king is dead, long live the king. That's what usually happens at any football club. There's pretty much revolving doors at most clubs, because players come in, players go out. That's the way it works. We've helped develop Patrick, and as I say, Patrick could still be involved on Saturday at the moment. Nothing's been done yet. But we'll take pride in the development we've played in Patrick's part, but the show goes on for us. So, if Patrick's training with us, then we just treat him as normal Patrick. If Patrick ends up departing, then we shake his hand and say, well done.
Looking ahead to Saturday, we talked about it after the game, how you guys were kind of hanging on with the 2-0 lead over Orlando, and it just kind of snowballed, got away. Moving on from that one, and what do you see in New York, and how do you take the lessons from Saturday into this week?
Well, I thought our performance was better last week. The last half an hour, we looked like a few of our players were flagging. When we had to withstand pressure, but still, when I look back at we made bad decisions for their goals, because I still look back on that game last week and against a team who I've always been impressed with, Orlando. Our goalkeeper wasn't overworked. He wasn't saving shot after shot. They had a couple of shots in the second half from outside the penalty box that went wide. They had a header going backwards from about 12 yards, which was always comfortable. So there wasn't loads of dangerous moments. So all in all, our positioning was good. We just made a couple of poor decisions that cost us goals when we were under pressure. And the first one was the big one, I think, because if you don't concede that, you probably go on to win the game. So we've learned from the mistakes. New York from last season have changed. We've got some new players, got a new coach. So it's a different New York we'll face this year to what we faced last year. But again, we're at home, and I thought you could see that we were at home last week with the way we started the game, with our fans behind us, and the atmosphere that they created. And I thought we played, especially the first half, with a lot more confidence than we have done.
Daryl, then Anna. Oh, sorry.
Hi.
Hi.
Some reports have come out of the Netherlands that there are clubs there interested in Mwanda. Have you had any conversations with him about where his head is?
I've had conversations with Addy, as I always do. There will always be rumours and gossip in football about possible moves and possible not moves. Again, we're in a really good position as a club that we're in control of it. If we don't want to sell any of our players, if somebody makes an offer, then we won't. You know, there'll be players that will think they will want to go and play at a higher level. But as I've always said, with players and clubs, there's three things that have to align. You know, the club who's buying has to align with the club that's selling in terms of the price, and then they've got to agree with the player as well. So there's a number of things that have to happen for moves to happen, and we're not in the business of selling our best players on a whim. We're here to compete and win things.
You mentioned maybe the window you'd be looking for left back. Is that still?
Yeah, no, that's still ongoing. With Patrick going as well, obviously a centre forward comes into our mind as well, which we thought it would do. So that's something we're looking at.
Okay. Speaking of left back, Nathan Burns, what kind of progression is he making?
He's making a really good progression. I'm hoping that he'll start joining in with us training next week, and he should be ready for the League's Cup campaign then.
And Nick?
You mentioned the shots from distance and like not testing the goalkeeper. I feel like we've seen Pep, maybe it was the game before, but definitely the game most recently, he was taking some shots from outside the 18. I know the goal was scored there, but is that something you guys train more? You want to see him take more of those opportunities when he's open, or how are you handling that?
I'm not a big fan of distance shots. I'm happy with the opposition taking them. I'm not too keen on us. I just think they're... listen, if there's nothing else on, not a problem.
Okay.
You know, but there's normally a better option on than shooting normally on your bad foot from 30 yards or 25 yards through bodies.
Are you cool with recycling it instead of...
Yeah, no, definitely cool with recycling it. I do feel that we get into some really good areas, and we should be crossing it into more dangerous areas, and we should be setting up people for first time shots as well, a lot better than we are. That was something that we've been working on this week.
Okay. And then you were talking about defensively, like the 5v4 situation. Do you feel like Zaha defensively was maybe missed in that last match?
No, I thought the two wide players were okay last week. You know, Pep played in the right area, and Kerwin played on the left. And defensively was okay. We didn't have too many problems. We had the one after about, I think it was 12 minutes, their left back got a header at the far post. And again, three defenders, two centre halves, and the right back got dragged too far inside. You know, that's a quick fix, and one that we can do on the video and on the pitch. So it's again the decision making. Just make sure we don't. Teams want you to jump, and then they complain. You go and use the space. Every team in the final third, we're trying to create space in the final third, and the opposition will try and do that to us. So you know, it's really important that, you know, unless you know you can go and affect the ball, you don't jump.
Right. And then the decision to start Gianni in that midfield, I know we've seen Williamson in that area. Like, I'm curious how you're kind of going back and forth between those two players.
Yeah, I think DD came on against Chicago the week before and did really well in the second half. So I thought he'd earned the right to go and start the game. We was always moving Branico into the 10 position because we wanted to go and press a little bit higher against Orlando, and I thought that worked really well. You know, and I thought just having that balance of a right foot, left foot helped as well with DD.
Yeah, I thought he had a great game too. Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem at all.
Nick,
Thank
good
you.
morning.
Dean, should Patrick leave in this window, what are the most important attributes to you for somebody coming in?
Listen, that's a question probably for Patrick. If Patrick, well, I've had the conversation with Patrick, and you know, my answer was I don't think he should. I want him to stay here, but you know, it's up to the player to make that decision. And as long as the player is making the decision and not his representative, because I did remind Patrick that, remember, you know, agents work for you, not the other way around.
And in terms of possibly having to replace that type of talent and production at this point in the season, what are the... Well,
our window's closed still at the moment, isn't it? It doesn't open in a few weeks. You know, I think we've got another 4 games until it opens. So, you know, if it gets agreed and he goes before then, you know, our hands are tied a little bit for 4 games.
Jorge?
You touched a little bit on NYCFC. What have you noticed from the music? A couple of differences.
Yeah, I mean, Martinez definitely is a centre forward, runs in behind a lot more. They've got really good technical players, fullbacks really attacking. So it's something we've got to look out for. They've got very technical players, little combinations, little give and goes. And they've got some good rotations as well, and we've got to make sure that our focus, our reference is the ball and not players.
Nice. And then, Leo Labata, what was maybe your decision behind not starting him?
I didn't think he was great at Chicago, solely that. And we've got players now who are competing all the time, and he's been competing with Kerwin. I decided last week to go with Pep on the side as well, and he scored a really good goal from there. So, it was a tough decision, but, one that he accepted and knows that he's got to work harder.
Nice. And then last one, what do you like from Pep maybe starting on that right wing and floating centrally versus having him in the middle?
I just think if you remember last season, I don't think when he first came in, first 3 or 4 games, he probably hit it off as a 10, and we put him on the side, and he actually he ends up in the pocket and he receives the ball as the ball comes, and I thought he caused a lot of problems last year doing that. Last week was one of them games where I thought he could go and do that because one of Bram Bronico's strengths when he plays there is to go and put the opposition under pressure, and we ended up doing that well as a team. For this week, then Pep may be back in as a 10.
Thank you.
No worries. Thank you.
We'll go to Sam Spencer, then back to Willie.
Dean, hope you're having a good week.
Not bad at all, thank you, Sam. And you?
Can't complain. So wanted to ask you, I think 2 out of the 3 times he's showed up on the field for Charlotte FC this year, Bill has put it in the back of the net. Has he done anything in your estimation to earn more minutes?
Could be a song there, couldn't it? 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Yes.
Yeah, so listen, he done well. He came in, he was always going to flag as the game went on. And Bill's been unfortunate. The partnerships between Addy and Privs last year was outstanding, and then Tim's come in as well as a left-sided left footer. So his playing time's been limited, but he's never let us down when he's come in. And I was pleased with his contribution. I mean, his switch of play for the first goal as well was excellent last week.
Your opponent this week just got a lot of headlines for sending a 700, 800 pound inflatable pigeon down the Hudson River. Don't know why the CFC did that, but if a football club in England sends an inflatable down the Thames, say past Craven Cottage, what would the reaction be?
I think we'd be more into our racing pigeons than inflatable pigeons, I must admit. And we could send a few messages with them as well.
And then finally for me, you mentioned earlier that you thought Abada was not great against Chicago. Where do you see his place in the team right now as one of only 2 DPs on the team, but has not gotten the consistent start from you?
Yeah, no, I think he started the season well. He's probably just come off it a little bit, and it's pretty. I think it's difficult at times when it's a player who's going away for international duty as well, and they miss time with us. But we know what his standards are. He knows what his standards are, and he's working hard to get back to them.
Thank you, Coach. Best of luck this weekend.
Thanks, Sam.
We'll go to Willie and wrap up with Mike.
Given your current fullback situation, are you more keen on deputizing Tim there, or are you still worried about Andrew? Kind of what's the?
Yeah, Andrew's trained all week, so I've got less of a worry. If Andrew is struggling, then we'll just go and get an inflatable Andrew and float him on the pitch.
You had mentioned in Orlando, in the Orlando contest, that they kind of wore your right side out. Does that even maybe make you more keen on Tim at the left, Shaquille on the right? Does that seem?
Yeah, it's something we can look at. Nick's come in and done well. I thought Nick done really well first half, defended really well. Obviously tired as the game went on and cramped. So it's something that we can look at. Jack can play right back. Nick can play right back. Jack can play left back. Tim can play left back. So it's something that we'll definitely look at. And I think the drop off concerned me last week a little bit. And when you've got 2 out of the back 4 who are cramping towards the end, it puts you on the back foot a little bit.
Going back to and I apologize for continuing on the Patrick thing, but if Patrick does leave, the player that you would try to bring in when the time allows, are you looking for a player that has got his size, his finish? I mean, obviously you want all those things, but does it really depend on what?
No, I mean it's hard to go and get a like for like. Just the way Patrick plays, he's a little bit different in this league, I think, from other strikers. But there are definitely strikers out there who are available, and there'll be a mixture. There'll be some that will run in behind and score goals. There's some that are penalty box finishers. There's some that will be physically powerful. So there's a little bit of a mixture. And I think our balance has also got to be right. Are we bringing somebody in to go and compete with Edan? Are we bringing somebody in to back Edan up? And that's a decision that we've got to make. By bringing somebody in. Then
is there a thought about fit with the group as well, with the personality of the player? If you get to that.
No, personality always, character. Whenever we're looking at players, and I've got a list sat on my laptop, and I'll go and speak to coaches, players who I know and trust, who've played with them or coached them or worked with them, and get information on them, because they've got to be coachable. They've got to want to come and improve, and want to win things as well.